Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Rachel Gonzalez. I'm a recovering perfectionist, just trying to become more like Jesus and live in God's perfect will for my life. I really planned on this weekend talking about some travel that I did over the weekend. However, I didn't end up going because I'm sick. So it's kind of run through our household, started with my son, then my husband, then my daughter, and then I got it from her. So I'm a strong believer in God knows exactly what you need at all times. And I think God just thought I really needed rest this weekend, which this weekend has been extremely restful with it being a 3-day weekend. However, I was excited because I was going to be meeting my friend's new baby and then another friend's new boyfriend. And then I was going to be having breakfast with my dad. And I didn't get to do any of those things, which is really sad. But I did get to rest, which my body needed. And I got to spend time with my family, which I desperately needed. So, and then we also had an open house for our house, and we only had one person come, but we're still hopeful, still praying. Please be praying that our house sells. But just, kind of a low-key weekend when it was supposed to be a travel weekend. My plan was to kind of talk about the travel, how to travel with an infant, because Eleanor was going to be going with me, but just it didn't happen. And then I thought about, well, what if I still just do all the packing and show all the things that I would be taking? And then I thought, that would just be kind of depressing to pack for a trip that I am not going on. So instead, I decided, since a lot of my rest had to do with reading, because I love to read, and that was very restful for me this weekend to be able to do. I thought that I would recap some of the books that I've been reading. So last year I read 40 books on Goodreads, and my goal this year was 48. Or for 2024 is 48 books. That'd be about 4 books per month, which is exactly how many books I read last month. And so I was just thinking maybe I'll just talk about those books that I read. So the first book that I read last month in January was The Inmate. And The Inmate it's a book by Frida McFadden. If you don't know her work, it's pretty good. This one's not my favorite book of hers, but still had some twists at the end and stuff. One of the things that I really liked about this book is that in the end of the book, it kind of wraps everything up in a pretty bow, which I like. I don't really love, when you get to the end of a book and you have questions still about what happened or why did this happen. And so I really liked this book because, at the end, you get all the answers. And one of the things that I really hate in books and movies is when things can be clarified or just avoided if the characters communicated. And so this is one of those books where it's you don't really understand why she doesn't have a good relationship with her parents, and they don't really communicate that well. But in the end of the book, you find out all these things and why they didn't really get along or why they didn't really talk that much. So the book basically is this girl and her parents die. So she goes back and lives in their house in her old town. And her parents didn't really get along that well. So she lives in this house, and she gets a job at a maximum security prison as a doctor, essentially. And she sees patients and, stitches them up or she gives out medications and things like that. Anyway, she does all of these things. And one of the guys who is in prison there was actually her high school boyfriend. And she is the reason why he was locked up in prison. So anyway, she sees him, obviously. They start communicating. And then, you really get I don't know, I don't want to say attached to him, but you get you get that sadness for him and, that his life turned out this way or whatever. And then, she also at the same time is starts talking to this guy outside of prison who she also went to high school with, who like lived next door forever and ever. And then you have like these two guys that, you know, she talks to while she's at the prison, then when she talks to when she's not in the prison. And then you kind of end up deciding which one you like better, which one you're rooting for. And in the end, you find out exactly what happened and the real story behind everything. And I will say that it was one of the like least twisty books that I've read of hers, I would say. But still had a good twist at the end. I would recommend it, like 4 out of 5 stars probably. The next book that I read was also by Frida McFadden, and that book was called Never Lie. I read this one with a group of girls that I like have a little, you know, I do a book club with on the internet. We all live close to each other. We just don't ever get together because we all have kids and someone's always sick. So, anyway, we read the book Never Lie, and that book was a couple. They were like a newlywed couple, and they were looking for houses, and they go in a blizzard to like see this house. And when they go, you know, it's like the girl's like very jumpy, and she's like, oh, I think somebody's in here, you know, like the fridge was stocked with food. She keeps hearing noises. So then she's like, somebody's here. And she's like worried and scared. Which is why it was kind of weird, because I think the whole time I'm like thinking like, gosh, like what's going on? You know, does her husband know what's going on? And he like brought her there. You know, so it's like you kind of like jump the whole time because she, the main character, is making everything feel jumpy and scary. And then in the end, you know, you find out that she had a lot to do with all of the things that were going on. So I thought that one was pretty good too. I think I liked The Inmate more. I definitely did not like either of these more than The Housemaid, because The Housemaid was one of the best books. But both good books, 4 out of 5 stars. The third book I read was called The Perfect Marriage, and that's by Geneva Rose. And this book was okay. I give it like a 3, maybe 2.5. Basically, this guy, and I think that this might be probably why I didn't love the book too, but this guy was cheating on his wife. And what ends up happening is he has like this cabin where he goes to write, and the wife never comes because she's a lawyer and she's like, you know, always busy or whatever. And he goes out there, and I guess like he starts having an affair, and this girl comes to visit him at his little lake house all the time because his wife never goes. And he's out there with her, and then he goes home that night, and then this girl winds up like murdered in his lake house, and he is like adamant, like, I did not kill this girl, even though it totally looks like he did, because he was the one that was there with her. And, you know, then obviously this all starts unraveling, and the wife, who's a lawyer, decides to defend him, which I think is crazy. But in the end, you find out why she did what she did, because I mean, I don't really want to give it away. So, but, you know, she defends him, and I'm trying to think what else. Like his mom was like so crazy, you know, was being so rude to his wife, who's defending her cheating husband. And she just like would be like, well, you know, if he had a better wife, he wouldn't have been cheating on you. Or, you know, well, if you just cook better meals, you know, or whatever. Like she just was so rude. And anyway, in the end, you know, the guy, I don't think he even like, I don't know. He didn't win the case. That's what all I have to say. Said he didn't win. And so I wouldn't highly recommend this book, but for a kind of psychological thriller sort of book, it was okay, you know, and if you like those kind of books, then I'd say go for it. The last book that I read in January, I was going to read in December, but then I never got around to, and finally got to it. I actually listened to this one on audiobook, and it was recommended by the Carpool podcast, which everybody knows I'm a huge fan of. And it's called Bright Lights, Big Christmas by Mary Kay Andrews. After reading 3 books in a row that were like psychological thrillers, had twists, like all these things, this book was so slow for me because there were no twists or turns. There were no there's no suspense to it. It was like a feel good, like watching a rom-com, And so, just super slow, very feel good. And I would not recommend reading this book, to be honest. But also I do like those suspenseful books that have twists and turns that, you get surprised in the end. And like, there were no surprises here. Basically, this girl, her name is Carrie, I think. She is from North Carolina, and her brother are taking all of these trees up from their family's Christmas tree farm to New York City, where they've always gone to sell trees at Christmas time. And I think that one of the things that is so hard for me to believe is that people were spending like $1,200 on these trees. And I just would never do that. So to me, I'm like, maybe people in New York really care about trees that much and they would spend that much money on trees. But I wouldn't. It was just like, it was highly unbelievable. They also, her and her brother were like living in this little trailer with no water. I mean, it was like, for like a month. And then her brother was just like sleeping all the time. And then he would like go to sleep, wake up randomly to like deliver trees, and then be like so tired. And I was just like, I don't know why he's so tired all the time. She's like literally doing 90% of the work, basically all the work. She's working the tree stand. And then she would like leave the tree stand to go shopping and buy like a $200 cashmere sweater. And I'm like, you guys are barely scraping by, but you're spending all this money on a cashmere sweater. You left your Christmas tree stand unattended so that you could go buy this sweater for a party that like you don't even know any of these people at. It was wild, bizarre to me. But if I would say come December, you're looking for a Christmassy type book, go for it because it's very Christmassy. But, just, it's like, basically like I would equate it to watching like those cheesy Netflix Christmas movies or like Hallmark Christmas movies. Just really slow and nothing going on. That's pretty much it. So sorry that was the last review I had for you. But the first 3, I would say The Inmate and Never Lie, I would say read those books. Like those were good. The Perfect Marriage, if you want to. And then Bright Lights, Big Christmas, I would say just pass altogether unless you're looking for something at Christmas time. Those are really the only book reviews I have so far. I did in February read Fourth Wing, so I might do like a monthly recap of the books that I'm reading if I can get to 4 books each month. I'm currently reading a book about homeschooling. So those are kind of forthcoming. I don't really think I got the hype of Fourth Wing, but it was okay. So I'll talk about that later on, kind of the premise of that whole book. And because I really want to read Iron Flame also, the second one. So maybe I'll recap those together. But that's pretty much it for me this weekend. Like I said, I mean, I was hoping to have a travel video for you and just didn't get to go. So lots of rest here this weekend, and maybe next week I will decide to talk about travel tips if I can, get through it this week. We got a lot of soccer going on. Both boys are playing soccer. And then I also, throughout the week, I've got like physical therapy. Jose and I are both doing like Bible studies at our church right now. So we're kind of busy. So we'll see what I come up with next weekend. But it was great talking to y'all. We will see you next time.